All right. I think we are live. Mic test. All right, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are at. Welcome to our first live session, I think, for this calendar year. It's been a while. It's been a busy year for almost every one of us, but I wanted to take this opportunity to do a live session and talk about one of the most important foundations as you are growing in your professional career or as you are trying to apply for programs, jobs, etc. I think networking and professional development is a critical tool that we need in order for us to be competitive in whatever we want to be in our professional career. So here's the topics as you can see on the screen right now. We're going to talk about a little bit of networking, the networking kit, tips for networking, and then a little bit about professional development. And also, we'll open the platform for question and answers as well. Like I mentioned earlier, I am Lieutenant Aaron Abreu. Before we begin, this video is not sponsored by the Medical Service Corps, the United States Navy Department of Defense. I do not get any bonuses or any extra perks just because of doing this. I simply like to give back and kind of pass on what I learned to those individuals that are aspiring to be Medical Service Corps officers as well. Right. So without further ado, let's jump into our first topic, which is networking. So, what is networking? For a lack of better terms, networking is just basically getting to know other people so that you can have this type of relationship with them in a professional way. There's this article from the Harvard Business Review that I truly love. It's called Learn to Love Networking. Now, I was guilty of this prior to reading this. I was very guilty of what the authors were talking about in this article. And they mentioned about how a lot of people view networking as disgusting and almost like you're using people to your advantage, right? That's how we see networking. And you're only doing it because you want to gain something out of it. So the article proposed 4 strategies so that you can shift that mindset specifically. And I love it. So if you have time and your own time, Google Learn to Love Networking from the Harvard Business Review article. And it would really change your mindset on it because it sure did with me. So the first thing on there is focus on learning. So the authors on here basically did a study on about 165 lawyers in North America. And they kind of gauged about those who network and those who didn't network. And summary of it, those who network were more successful professionally compared to those that did not network. And one of the first strategies on there is focus on learning, right? You want to make sure that when you come in to a networking event, there's 2 mindsets on that the authors were talking about. The first mindset is the promotion mindset. And what that means is I'm coming in here as an opportunity, right? An opportunity to improve myself, to learn something new, to learn a new skill set, right? The other mindset is the preventative. And I think most of us are guilty of this. When there is a work event per se, we tend to think of it as like, I have to go to this event. It's so dreadful. It's a necessary evil. But they found that the lawyers that have the promotion mindset actually did fairly well compared to those that have a preventative mindset. So when you're going to a networking event or any work event, really, think of it as an opportunity and have that excitement that you get to meet new people as well. So that's the first strategy that they recommended. Focus on learning. The second one is identify common interests. Now, in order for networking relationships to work, is you have to be authentic, right? You can't pretend that, just so you can be in the circle, because eventually it would all come to light and you'll just be a fraud. And then, it's not going to turn out well. So find some common interests. And what do I mean by that? So for example, I'm going to use MSAPP as an example. If when I was trying to commission, I started with looking for officers that were prior corpsmen, right? Simply by talking to them. And I found that those that were just like me when I was in HM2, those that were trying to commission as an HM at that point in their time in their career, we can relate, right? You have some foundation, or it doesn't have to be a rate specific thing. It could also be a platform specific thing. So if you both of you were stationed at a Marine Corps base, or if you had an assignment together with a Coast, or both of you were assigned to a Coast Guard unit, something to that effect, to where you're building common interests, because the relationship is just a little bit more authentic. So that's the second strategy that the author suggested. The third one is coming into the relationship or to networking relationship with what you can give. The biggest fault that we have, and sometimes I'm still guilty of this, I'm not going to lie, is when you go to network we come into, well, what can I get from this person? What can I pick from you, and how can I use you to my advantage? And that's how we get into the mindset of like, this is kind of dirty of me of like doing this because I feel like I'm just using this person. Well, it is true, because that's the mindset that you're coming in. But if you come in there with a mindset of like, I'm coming in here because I have something to contribute, then it would change everything, right? Now you're probably thinking, well, sir, I'm just a junior sailor, or I'm junior in the organization, I have nothing to contribute. False, right? Everyone has something to contribute to the table, whether those could be your hard skill sets of editing or video, or writing an article, or promoting something, right? Those are the hard skill sets. But you also have your soft skill sets of, for example, you are pretty good at getting everybody together. You're just really good at that. So that's something that you can contribute and give back as well. So focus on those things of what you can give, and don't focus on like, I don't have the whatever letter is after my last name, so I have nothing to contribute. Get out of that mindset. One of the things that the authors talked about in this article is, a lot of younger generation gets a little intimidated with networking, but little do they know that there is something that you can contribute, because the younger generation knows the current trends of what's going on and up to date of what is in and what is out. So that's something that you can contribute to your networking as well. Last but not the least, one of the things and strategies that they recommended on here is having a higher purpose. And I think this goes back to summarize this specific strategy is, what is your why, right? If you know what your why is, or why you're coming into this networking, then it's all just going to smooth out well. I know that's kind of cheesy a little bit, but if you don't have a purpose coming into the networking, yes, you're going to kind of like shoot from the hip, and it's going to be a little bit more difficult, right? So 4 strategies is focus on learning, find some common interests, focus more on what you can give versus what you can get, and have a purpose coming into the networking relationship. Again, this is an article from the authors of Harvard Business Review called Learn to Love Networking, right? So now that we know a little bit about networking and we've established a little bit about the foundation of it, I want to share with you some networking kits, right? So this Lieutenant Miles, Keona Miles, had like a presentation in one of our Google Classrooms, and she kind of talked about a little bit of having this handy at all times, right? For the MSc IPP, I think these bullets that you see right in front of you is a key foundation. It's a good start. I'm not saying that this is the only thing that you should have, but at least these are the things that you should have in your back pocket, right? A Navy bio, a CV or resume. And if you don't know what a CV is or resume, I highly recommend you Google it. But to describe it real quick, resume is more of like a quick summary about the jobs you've done, and CV is a little bit more in depth, right? Those are the 2 biggest differences of a CV and a resume. Your last 5 evals, and then your transcripts if you're applying for a student program such as the PA program or the HCA training program. So those are the biggest things on there. And since we are talking about that, I want to share with you my specific, where is it? Sorry, I'm trying to share with you my screen, but it is not letting me. Okay. I'll share it with you in the platform of what example of a bio, of a CV, evals as well. There's certain pages in your Beepers Online that can show like a quick summary of your evaluations called the personal summary report. It shows the person reviewing your package or you're reviewing something about you, like the trends that you have in your evals, right? So that's a good quick summary that you can share to the person that you're trying to network with. Okay. Sorry, having some difficulty. There we go. Okay. Sorry about that. And another thing on here is also having a hard copy and a digital. So what I have on here, what I was trying to share with you, is basically I have a combined PDF file of all the things that I've mentioned on here because it's just easier versus sending multiple files like 3, 4, 5 PDFs. I just combined it into one, and when I'm trying to introduce myself to someone, or when I was applying for the program, actually, I just created this consolidated PDF file that I sent to the officer before I even send my official application. I wanted to introduce myself just by sending this real quick so that they have that opportunity to review it. And the other one is a hard copy version of this is a binder. Lieutenant Miles mentioned it really, really great when she said, like, hey, when you're walking around the hospital or wherever you're stationed with, have that binder print out at the very front page of a cover page on your binder, HM2 Jones, and then on there's a big MSC MSc insignia, MSc IPP application, because just by walking around with that binder and having a complete one, somebody bumps into you, it's like, hey, I noticed you have an MSc insignia right there. You're enlisted. Are you applying for the MSc IPP? It's a good conversation starter, right? So having these tools handy can be very, very useful for your networking kit. So that's one thing that I would recommend to have. Obviously, you can add more to that or redact it as well, but these are the things that I recommend that you have in your networking kit. Next one that I want to talk about is tips for networking. So, networking can be intimidating, especially if you are an introvert, if you're not a people person, right? It takes practice. It's not like you wake up and you're super awesome at networking. I know for me specifically, when I don't know the group and I'm the only one there, I tend to be in the corner of the room. Maybe some of you are. If you are, leave a comment, send a thumbs up. I kind of like stay in the corner of the room, just observe, quiet, and I scan the room and look for the person that's kind of similar, has a similar vibe to me, right? So that we're all guilty of that at some point in our life, right? But once you get over that awkwardness phase and you're ready to introduce yourself, um, don't go into a full blown history just yet, right? A quick introduction, telling them presently where you're at, right? Hi, I'm Lieutenant Aaron Abreu. I'm currently a healthcare administrator for the Navy. I'm actually over at USS George Washington, a carrier. So, like just a quick intro, right? When you're doing this, most people think that when we're networking, you have to give your full resume already. It's like, whoa, easy, right? It's like this is like almost a dating kind of thing. Slow it down. You're just introducing yourself. Now, the second one, prepare a 30-second about me spiel. This is one of my favorite ones, and I read this on another article as well. Is when they ask you, like, well, tell me a little bit about yourself, right? There's a lot that you can talk about yourself, and this could be things like, well, what do they want to know? Do they want to know what my hobbies are? If you are in a professional setting, and this is an interview per se, so this is a good tip for your interview appraisals. If somebody's asking you about telling them about yourself, a good thing to remember is something from your past, something currently, and something in the future, right? 30 seconds, right? So something in the past, there are things that you've done real quick, where you're from. Hi, I'm Aaron. I was born in Saudi Arabia, grew up in the Philippines, and then we moved to the United States when I was 18 years old, and that's where I joined the Navy. Currently, I am in the United States Navy. I'm a healthcare administrator. I am in the USS George Washington, where I am the medical admin officer. Moving into 5 years from now or in a few years from now, just giving an example, like 2 years from now, I want to be able to have my certification as a fellow in American College of Healthcare Executives. And this is why I'm here right now, is hoping that you can help me out with this, because I really heard a lot of great things about you. So those are kind of a quick, rough 30-second about me, right? So having that 30-second about me spiel in your back pocket will definitely help you out. And then balance your professionalism and personable. Kind of gauged your audience, right? So you want to make sure that if you're talking to, again, I'm going to use this MSAAPP as a platform, talking to senior officers, junior officers, right? So we are in the Navy where we have a hierarchy and a structured rank system. So you want to make sure that you are professional at all times. I'm not saying that when you're talking to a junior officer, just go like throw away all your military bearing out of the way, but have that professionalism at all times, but still have that personable, don't be a robot, right? So having that good balance is really, really critical. Now, how does this work in like a social media kind of way, like in Facebook? So I see this a lot in our Facebook page. And if you've done this before, this is not to call you out, right? Introducing yourself is critical, right? And telling the group a little bit about yourself is also critical when you're asking for help. So something that you shouldn't do is like, hey, I need a mentor who's in Naval Medical Center, San Diego. Thank you. HM2 Abreu, right? So it's like, who are you? Granted, sometimes some people will respond to that, but a better way is to having that quick introduction about yourself, and just that 30-second spiel, right? Like I said, you don't have to list everything in your Facebook post, but just a little bit of 30 seconds. And then from there, you can engage with whoever responds to you. Be like, hey, let's just say I'm the one that responds to that comment. Hey, go HM2 or OS2, go ahead and message me. Respond to that person and say, hey, LT, thank you so much for responding to my post. As I mentioned in my post, here's where I'm at. Here's my intention. And oh, by the way, here's a quick send a PDF that we talked about from your networking kit, right? Because you want to establish that relationship and kind of help them paint a picture about yourself, right? So that's my tips for networking. Obviously, this is not the end all be all. This is just what has worked for me. And if you want to do that as well, go ahead and do so. Then we have the professional development. Now, you're probably wondering, how is networking and professional development tied in? I think that these two are essential to each other, because when you are developing yourself professionally, you tend to be part of organizations that have individuals that have the same mindsets and goals like you, right? So eventually you create this network as well. So that's why it's important to develop yourself professionally as well, whether you are a physician assistant student or trying to be a physician assistant, social worker, you name it, there's an organization for it, right? So here are some of my tips for professional development. Is taking courses and certifications is one way. Examples of this, since I am a healthcare administrator, this is more biased towards HCAs, but BROC, the Basic Readiness Officer course, is available in e-learning. Participating in your local Six Sigma, I know in certain Navy Medicine Readiness Training centers and units, they have a Six Sigma program, or maybe certain bases. Six Sigma is a big one. PMP, Professional Management Program, or starting that process. Udemy is a very big one as well. Not sure if I'm saying it right, but if you Google udemy.com, there's tons of certifications that you can get to show yourself that you are proficient at a certain skill, like Microsoft Access. That's actually how I learned Microsoft Access. And as a sideline, I do not work for Udemy. I just utilize it personally. I don't have any affiliation with this company as well. But that's just one. These are just few examples of courses and certifications. And I always recommend this to individuals that are thinking, hey, sir, I already have it. I already have my master's. I have my doctorates. I don't know why the Navy's not selecting me. Well, I'm a firm believer of personal improvement and continuous improvement. And one way you can do that is by having additional courses and certifications that your specific community will value. And how do you know that? How do you know what courses and certifications to take? Well, through networking, right? By networking, you can ask about those PAs and social workers, what they've done or what you can do currently where you stand while you're not yet in their current position, right? Um, Another thing that you can do for professional development is joining these associations and organizations. Like I mentioned earlier, you go to Google and you type in, for example, EHOs. A lot of people think that EHOs, there's no really association on there. If you Google NEHA, and I don't have my Google tab open right now, but I believe it stands for National Environmental Health Association. That's an organization, right? That I think if you put that in your extracurricular activity, that you're an active member with their local chapter, that's a big plus, right? It shows that you're doing something, but you're also expanding your network. A very big one on top is the American College of Healthcare Executives, right? This is during my interview, right, with when I was applying for MSc IPP, a lot of senior MSc officers always looked for it. My first 3 applications, I did not have ACHE on there, and they always asked about it. Like, why are you not part of ACHE? You know, they have a student fee. There's a student membership for that. So being part of these organizations will really, really help you and expand your network as well. And the AAPA is for the physician assistants. And all these organizations, just by doing a quick Google visit, they have local chapters as well. You type it, you put in the zip code, boom, there's a local chapter that you can join. And through that, you'll be surprised. There's probably some Navy officers that are already part of that organization as well, right? A classic example of mine is my local chapter for ACHE right here, Healthcare Administrators of Tidewater. When I joined just recently, I took over as the membership chair, and the position came from a commander that's been holding that position for about 2 years. So it was a good opportunity to network and learn about them. So that's a valuable tool joining these associations and organizations, right? So don't just focus on the Navy stuff. These are some additional things that you can add to your toolbox as well. Because remember, it's a very, very competitive program. So we want to see that you're continuously developing yourself. Because there's a nav admin that came out specifically addressing the FITREPs of officers and saying, you know, the CNO and CMP saying like, hey, we want to see that you're continuously improving yourself as naval officers. So if you're showing that now when you're about to apply as an enlisted, that shows that, okay, yeah, so you're doing this right now. This means that you're probably going to do it too once you get commissioned, right? So that's my take on the professional development. All right, so we talked about networking, right? We talked about the networking kit, a little bit of tips for networking and professional development. Now we will go to the very end to where the question and answers, and if there's none, that's okay as well. But since we are live, I always like to open the floor or the platform for questions and answers as well. Or if you are if you have some things to contribute as well, please feel free to put in the comments section of Facebook. I'm actually going there right now just to kind of peek if there's anybody posting there. If not, that is totally fine. But hopefully you learned something with this quick Facebook Live, less than 30 minutes of like how to network and to professionally develop yourself as well. These are, like I said at the beginning, critical components of how you can be a better leader, a better peer as well, and contribute to our organization. Okay. I'm going to stay here for a little bit and just see if there's anybody to have questions or any comments. And if not, thank you so much for listening, and you have a great day.